Le webinaire va bientôt commencer. Veuillez rester en ligne.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. This is Brian Judd. I'm the host of tonight's webinar with Paulette Ensign. But before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple things. One, you cannot talk to us. All you can do, the only way you can communicate with us is via that questions dialog box that's on your desktop. And if someone, Susan or Casey or someone would just say, hi, Brian, or anybody would say, hi, Brian, I can hear you, so I know we're getting through, that would be very helpful. And just want to make sure that you can hear me. So if someone is out there, just say hello. Oh, got it. Thanks, Susan. I thought you would do that. Okay, so we're getting through. Hi, Deborah. And Deborah is always a regular here, too. So thank you very much for doing that. So you can hear me now. This will be recorded, and I'll get a link to the recording to you tomorrow or soon, as soon as I can. And with that link will be the handout from Paulette and another handout that I will send along with that. So you'll get the two PDFs that will come with the link to the recording tomorrow. So without any further ado, let's see here. Okay, I'll start the recording, and then I will do this brief intro again, and we'll get Paulette started here. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight on this webinar by Paulette Ensign about becoming an almost instant author. This webinar is brought to you by the Association of Publishers for Special Sales, which is APPS, and the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association, CAPA. And we are recording this, and we'll get the link to the recording to you shortly. So that will be and the handouts too. We'll send the handouts and the link to the recording to you as soon as possible, most likely tomorrow. I'd like to start by introducing Paulette. So let me tell you about Paulette. Paulette Ensign. Paulette is founder, chief visionary, and booklet queen and Tips Products International. Her sense of humor and can-do attitude are the backdrop for easily transforming your knowledge into tips booklets and other information products for marketing, motivating, and making money. Since 1991, Paulette has personally sold well over 1 million copies so far of her one and only tips booklet in 4 languages in various formats without ever spending a penny on advertising. Your brain will be popping with new ideas, any of which will significantly increase your bottom line and extend your message's reach. So today we're going to explore not only the idea of becoming an almost instant author by creating a terrific tips booklet, we'll dip into the real magic sauce, which is what to do with that booklet and other formats of the same content once the product is done. So with that, I will bring Paulette on, and we'll start off with just an overview. Paulette, if you'll begin by just telling us what a tips booklet is.
Sure, Brian. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. What many folks may not know is that you and I have known each other since, I think, just slightly before dirt was invented, I think is when we first met. And we've had the good fortune of presenting quite a few sessions over the years, both in person and on the phone and now on the internet as well. So it's always a pleasure to be able to share this information about how people can turn their knowledge into products that are motivating, that are making money, that are used for marketing. And to start right off, this whole deal about creating a tip, the content to use is really right available instantly once we stop to think about what is it that we're already telling people. And really, it's a question of mindfulness. What is it you're already saying when you're personally chatting with people? What is it when you write those articles of X number of tips or secrets or ways to that are so commonly done by most people that I know? And lots of folks are doing speaking, whether it is professional speaking in front of association or community or industry audiences, or in teleclasses, or in community groups of any kind. So that's where those pieces of information come from, using content you already tell people through those mechanisms.
Great. Okay. Let's get a little bit more basic and maybe tell us what a tip is and how do you write one?
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you about that because this is serious rocket science, and I'm saying that about as sarcastically as I know how to say.
Yes. Everybody will use that pretty soon. So they'll hear enough of it this evening.
Oh, thank you
Of your
very
sarcasm.
much. Not as much as you used to, anyway.
Yeah,
As a former East Coaster, I just can't help myself. And I say former because now, almost 20 years ago, I did pick up and move to sunny San Diego. And it's useful to know, partly also as a backdrop to what we're talking about here today, I did that without missing a beat in my business. I got on the plane on Saturday with my cat, and on Monday I was back in business. And it was because of these tips that I had written and that I had realized a formula for. And the formula for writing tips that I discovered in hindsight is what I had done that now is what I teach people to do. And it goes like this. Write one sentence starting with a positive verb, telling the reader what to do, followed by no more than 1 or 2 sentences explaining why or how, totaling 30 to 40 words. And what I just shared with you was a total of 32 words. 32 words. There was a lot of content, rock solid content in that 32 words. So using the second person, so you're talking to the reader, is also a very good way to do this. It's very effective. That means choosing you and your rather than I, we, or our, in case you're not completely clear about that. And the 2 pieces of information I just gave you about how to write the tip, and, well, it was all one, but different pieces to it of telling the reader what to do rather than what not to do, and speaking to the reader are ways to deliver your content in very immediately useful format. And by the way, why I'm so big on making it a positive verb, imagine that your expertise is about health and fitness, and you write this list of tips about do not eat this and do not do that and do not and avoid this. Once you're done, the reader is left eating dirt. They have nothing. They don't know what to do. So when you notice yourself going to don't or avoid or things like that, ask yourself what it is you want the reader to do. And I've given you a sample tip here of the first tip that...
Paulette,
yeah,
before you get that, somebody just emailed, I just sent something and chatted that they cannot hear you. Does anyone
Can't hear
else,
me?
Yeah. Does anyone else have the problem? Can everyone hear Paulette? I hear fine. Okay. Others can hear you fine. Julia, you might just check your speakers and or your phone, however you hooked up, because everyone else. Thanks everyone for saying that. So it could be a little louder, but fine here. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, Paulette. I just wanted to.
No. I'm glad that you did.
Hear you.
And now I'm looking back to get back to the slide just before the one we were on. Here we are. And thank you, by the way, whoever did say that. I am rarely told that I can't be heard, so that's
I can hear
really...
you without the phone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you tell Brian and I are good friends? So the sample tip is the first one from my booklet. And it does show you exactly and tells you exactly what the formula that I just explained in real life turns out to be. So here we go. Use a spiral, and by the way, my booklet is called 110 Ideas for Organizing Your Business Life and was written when I was, past tense, was a professional organizer. helping people organize their paper, time, and space. So that's why this first tip is use a spiral notebook to capture random ideas, to-do lists, and notes of phone conversations. That's the to-do. Here's the why or how. The notebook creates reliability and is far superior to the back of an envelope. Now that's 28 words of simple, valuable, direct content. And it is basic for a reason. It is basic so that people can absorb it and find it useful, and when they are ready for more, they'll come back to you for more.
Very good. But what's the real value of a simple how-to tip?
You know, that's a great question. I threw the word basic into the end of what I was just saying for a reason. The more educated, experienced, and intelligent you are, very likely the bigger the challenge is to remember where you started. And that is the best value and the best approach that you can possibly do in these tips. This is the starting point for people coming to your knowledge for the very first time. So the best way you can serve them is starting basic. And there's 3 ways that you will serve them by being basic, any of which, or all of which, any of them, can be extremely valuable for not only serving your audience, your constituency effectively, but also for you in building your product line and your business so people absorb and digest what you're giving them and they're ready to come back to you for more at that point later. So it's any of these 3 possibilities. It's either new information for them, it is a reminder of knowledge they forgot because it just wasn't in their everyday working knowledge, or, and this last one is kind of fun and yet you may resonate with this, it could be confirmation that what they know matches a perceived expert. Can you feel yourself puffing your chest out a little bit going, yeah, what that person just said, I already knew that, so I'm that much ahead of the game. And that's value. That's value. Absolutely. You made somebody feel good. They want to come back to feel good again. So that's the value of being basic. And every one of those things is important.
I agree. Who are the likely partners for a particular company?
You know, it really is, it's a fun thing for somebody who's wired the way I am to address that. And by the way, just so that everybody on the call is aware of this, the first section that we just did on Strategy 1 is the only one we're going to be addressing the creation of the product. Creation of the product is actually the easiest part of the whole thing. The other part of it is, what do you do with the product once you've got it created? Becoming an instant author or an almost instant author, that is usually the easiest part of all this. Now we're into the second strategy here of partnering for profits and introducing yourself and whoever your potential partners, business partners are on this, to each other's contacts, clients, colleagues, and community for a referral fee or not. And I put it that way because depending on what you're most comfortable with as far as a business model, you may find that doing commissions and finder fees and referral fees is something you're very comfortable with, and other people not so much. So even though I may not understand the opposite of what my personal approach is, I respect that it exists. So when you're looking around as far as who could be likely partners, think in terms of who you already know among your colleagues, among your clients, and within your community in general for whatever it is that you are looking to share and to expand your reach and your bottom line. So one example of millions of them can be that you found a great graphic designer and your people want to know about this resource because they have graphic design requirements as well. So you make an introduction to that graphic designer to your community with the understanding of receiving a referral fee from the graphic designer. It could be whatever the referral fee is that you each agree is equitable. It could be a percentage. It could be a specific currency amount. It could be for the first event. It could be for the life of the client. All of those things are open for discussion and for agreement. It's a great way, though, for anyone to expand their reach by having introductions made by a person to whoever it is that's their circle of people.
Okay. How can I partner? I've heard of needing big lists, but what else?
You know, that's one of those fun things, and again, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I've had many conversations lately with people about this whole concept of needing a big list. And I think I heard somebody say that it was, they encapsulated the distinction here really, really well. And they said, you know, it's really more the idea of responsiveness than it is quantity. So you may have a small list, a small community, and yet they are very responsive. They will purchase, they will participate in whatever it is you bring to them because they respect you and they have a loyalty and they understand that anything you're going to bring them is going to be useful and have high value to them. So your list may be very small, your group, however you define it, may be very small, and yet they step up to the plate and they absolutely participate all the time. As where a large list, you may have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of followers. However, they just kind of ponder each thing you bring to them and really never jump on board. They don't pull out their credit card. They don't sign up. They don't raise their hand to participate in whatever way. And you can bring products or promotions to your people. You can present classes online, offline to other audiences, just like we're doing today, in fact. And Brian, you and I have done this quite a few times over the many years we've known each other.
Yeah.
You can and it's worked really well because, and this is a key piece, and you and I are modeling this right now. You and I have similar awareness about certain things in publishing, and yet we come at it from different perspectives. You come at it with books, with special sales, with quantity sales. I come at it with booklets. We each have a non-traditional approach that is similar to each other and different from a lot of the other people that we know. So it blends really beautifully. And our whole construct is very complementary. You know, we're both really high-power people, Brian, right? And where we couldn't help that one.
Yeah.
We both are in our own way, and interestingly enough, it just looks a little bit different. So introducing each other's products to your people as well. Now, Brian has written several books, and I am constantly making referrals to those books. And that's beside the fact that he invited me to participate in those books. I send people to the special sales catalog that he's got because it goes in a different direction than I go, and yet a lot of my people absolutely benefit from it. And Brian sends me people who are interested in doing booklets either in addition to their books or instead of or before. In several of these cases, yes, we do split sales revenues by agreement. And in other situations, we do things because we want to introduce a new concept to the other person's audience. Any of those things are great. It just comes down to being clear about what your intention is and how you're going to interact together. So that's the story about that part of it. Another way that you can partner for profits is in co-authoring booklets. You may have seen co-authored books, sometimes known as anthologies. This is the booklet version of it, where multiple participants share in the resources of not only the dollar amounts, but also they help each other market. Because every time any one person in the booklet distributes it either online or offline, it takes 13 other people with them marketing them. So co-authoring booklets, it's a more budget-friendly way to become published than books, and it's a quicker way. It takes much less time, and you get a very large reach. We've got 14 people in these booklets, and each person has a page, 225 words, usually takes you 10 minutes at the outside. That is one definite way to become an almost instant, we talk about almost instant author. and it does not preclude you doing any other products that you would author. You can still do a book. It also helps you sell more of the books if you've already got them. So that's something to give some serious thought to, and we are forever putting together collections of experts on various themes. On this one, you see it's a group of law firm marketing leaders, tips from a collection of experts. There's 14 law firm marketing leaders from different law firms where each of them has a different focus, and it complements each other so that anytime any one of the participants is either strategically giving away and or selling the booklet, it also automatically promotes the other 13 people in the booklet. And we've had some astounding results from that, both within North America and worldwide. We had a couple of years ago, in fact, there's a foreign publishing rights agent that you may or may not be familiar with named Bob Erdman, who goes to the Frankfurt Book Fair every year, which is a foreign publishing rights book fair. He took two of our booklets, two of our collection of experts booklets to that fair one year and made publishing sales to a publisher in Indonesia of two of these collection of experts booklets. That meant that 14 people times two went along for that ride. That wasn't on my radar, however, it worked really great. Really great. So that's the kind of thing that when we're talking about partnering for profit, that you can benefit from in ways that you may not have considered, you may not have had any reason to consider it until I'm mentioning it today. So we're going to move ahead here a little bit and into the third strategy.
One comment about Bob Erdman, that he was on my initial APPS board, and he will take the APPS members' books to Frankfurt or London or other shows to sell their rights. So just as a little aside there, that he's still very much in the business.
Yeah, and he's fantastic. He's a wonderful person, and he knows his stuff inside out and backwards. He's the consummate reference on foreign publishing rights sales. And you know, this is a mutual admiration society that Brian, you and Bob Erdman and I have for each other. So it's a wonderful set of resources that we can bring to anybody who's listening to this, either live or on the recording. So the next strategy of these 5 strategies that we're talking about here today about how to become an almost instant author, very often, especially when we're talking to nonprofits, the immediate thing that comes out of someone's mouth or in writing is, we don't have any money. Hi, hello, how are you? In that order. And the fact is there are a lot of nonprofits that do not have funding to do a lot of the things that they want to do to bring a whole lot of wonderful gifts to the world. So what we have experienced and what we teach people is the concept of finding sponsorship for especially nonprofits and also for-profit companies. There are many, many, many organizations that have 2 levels of membership, and I know in APPS you've got that. You've got the regular member level and you've got the corporate member level, where the vendors to the members are those corporate members. I hope I didn't confuse you in the process of that, but I'll give you an example of it right now. There's one that's on your screen in front of you, and I'll give you another one that will, before I lead right into this. As I mentioned to you, my own booklet was about organizing your business life, and I was very involved in the National Association of Professional Organizers for many years, and in fact had the opportunity to serve as national president. Regular members of that group are people who go to clients, whether they are at home or whether they are in small business or whether they're in corporate. Those are regular members, the hands-on services providers. The corporate members are the manufacturers, the likes of Pendaflex, Avery Dennison, Container Store, and organizations like that. So it would be very appropriate for one or more of those corporate members to realize that funding the production and education for a booklet and to have their name all over it would allow them to reach the ultimate end user in a way that millions of dollars of space advertising never could. So, for instance, that a Container Store sponsorship would fund a booklet that residential organizers would contribute tips to, that those residential organizers would then hand out to those homeowner clients of theirs. So it's several levels of benefit on that the sponsor ends up prompting and that everybody participates. So in this example that's on your screen right now, it says Sponsors for Nonprofits. We've done a couple of booklets in the past couple of years now for several different nonprofits, and this one is a group called Process Cleaning for Healthy Schools. It's a nonprofit, and they do have corporate members. And their main product from this nonprofit is a system that goes into school districts, into school systems, to help the school districts clean more thoroughly and more efficiently for less time and less money. And that's the process that this nonprofit sells. They decided they wanted to hire my company to create a booklet for and with them that's how-to tips on how to develop a cleaning production system. And the content of the booklet is all generic how-to tips that are relevant to the kinds of products that these two different sponsors, whose blurbs you see on the back cover on the left side of that slide, that they produce. So one of those companies does a cleaning system, a vacuum cleaning system, and the other one does a different product. The nonprofit strategically gives away this booklet as a download and as a hard copy at conferences as a way to generate leads that then go to discussing the sale of their whole big, larger, more expensive system that they sell to school districts. So that was a very long explanation about how sponsors can really be very helpful and benefit from putting money into creating booklets and allowing you to do things that you couldn't do otherwise. So when you are thinking in terms of, gee, what's it going to cost to produce this booklet, even though I'm becoming an almost instant author, there are many, many other entities around you that can serve to benefit by funding on dollars that are much less than what they're already spending on other advertising mechanisms. So sponsors for nonprofits is one thing to be aware of. Another way to fund your booklet is to sell space in your booklet. And again, I've taken an example that is comparable to what I was just showing you a moment ago, where the sponsor also decided to provide a discount coupon that was included among the pages of that booklet. That's one of many ways to sell space in your booklet. Brian and I have a colleague who many of you are also very aware of named John Kramer. And John has done many revisions of his well-known book, 1001 Ways to Market Your Books. On one edition of it, and I don't know if it was the most recent one several years back or not, he decided to sell space that was editorial space, that was articles that were relevant to the concepts and resources he was providing. And he made that available as a way to fund his book. And he did so in a very high integrity, very successful, very elegant way. And I am quite sure that the people who were included in that book got a lot of benefit from it because John and his books are so well established and are so targeted. So selling space in your booklet also is a viable way to generate funds. And one last one that I'd like to address here under the funding part of this, that it may not occur to you because you just had no reason, again, for it to occur, or you may have been scratching your head knowing there's a solution and it just wasn't coming. If you are a speaker, a professional speaker, or a consultant, and you tend to speak at conferences or on off-sites, or you have some other relationship with an association or a company, and you're having a conversation with somebody who you've had in the past where they've always brought you in But this year they said, we don't have the budget. And that may be one of the things that they said to you. They may also have said, you know, we've had you here for the past 6 years in a row, and we need to have somebody else here. Anything like that, or even any other variety of something like that. Once you've got booklets and books, by the way, my focus is primarily booklets. This also applies to books and other information product formats. You have a different conversation that you can open with that decision maker who says, no, not this year. You can suggest to them that they invest in booklets or books instead of having you there live. Booklets are likely to fit a budget differently than hiring you as a speaker or consultant. Many times that expenditure comes from a different budget line completely than speaking and consulting. And here's a couple of things to keep in mind. That the client, in investing in booklets from you, is paying you to market you internally, or at this point internally if they're hiring you as a speaker or consultant usually. So they're paying you to market you. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. And here's the other beautiful thing about it. Your presence lasts longer than when you are a speaker or a consultant for a finite period of time. The booklet continues to be a source of reference, and those booklets just keep popping back up again. They just keep popping back up. So not only is your teaching continuing to be reinforced, your presence is. And when somebody says, geez, where's that expert that we had here last year? She was such a good speaker. He was such a great consultant. Your booklet serves to market you while it's continuing to help people to learn. So those are some things that are really valuable to keep in mind as far as funding sources are concerned. Brian, what do you think about some of that stuff you've thought about, I'm sure, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, I've got some examples. At the end of the presentation, I'll give some examples of that. But I had an interesting question come in. What do you think of the sources like GoFundMe or PubSlush or something as a funding source?
You know, I am really interested in knowing the results other people have had with it. I personally have not approached it yet. And my general response to that is, if it works, absolutely.
Okay, that's good.
Absolutely. And I was on a webinar not long ago where somebody was talking about crowdfunding, and they were talking about having generated $45,000 in funding for a potato salad. So, you know,
wow.
If somebody can generate $45,000 to support creating a potato salad, I'm open to whatever you want to do, fine by me. Fine by me. So
yeah, that caught me by surprise. I thought potato salad was a pretty fairly staple item, but I guess not. I find a unique use for it.
Well, the thing that was so crazy about that, and I think it really bears commenting about it right here, many times, myself included, I don't know if you've ever fallen into this bucket, is that I think things through so much that I sometimes talk myself out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, that I have often really wished to be less knowledgeable so that I wasn't seeing the many possibilities of something. There's lots of folks, probably including the person who decided to do crowdfunding for potato salad, who just had a different level of awareness in life and didn't stop to think about what anybody else was going to think or say about putting up a campaign to gather money for potato salad.
That's good. That's good.
You know, I mean, this is called having fun and being a little less serious. Somebody else said to me the other day, yeah. Somebody else said to me, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Well, you know, that prompted all kinds of thoughts. And on the most basic, appropriate level, I thought to myself, yeah, that is what it's about. And I'm not saying from the moment I open my eyes in the morning till the time I go to sleep at night. However, you know, we're not charged with having the worst day of our life every day that we're on the planet.
Yeah.
So all of that, if you find that you have stopped yourself because you've talked yourself out of something, imagine if you have that much power, you probably could talk yourself into something just as well.
That's right. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
better than the
Uh,
analysis of paralysis or something like that.
right,
Now,
right, right, exactly. And you know, to the point that I made that at the very beginning about basics, that when we've got such a storehouse of knowledge, sometimes it's not always as useful and helpful as
yeah,
it might seem. So
right.
there are times to just take a step back, get a reality check, and go, okay, what's really important? What am I really willing to do? These funding sources I mentioned just now, I can't tell you how many times I have heard people say, oh my gosh, asking for $10,000. Well, in
Right.
some environments, $10,000 is not enough to ask for to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And in other situations, yeah, you're playing in the wrong field, you know, in the wrong sandbox for other people. So it really just depends on what game you're playing and who you're playing it with.
Yep. We're the ones that put the fun in funding, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. But the point that I made just now, though, as far as $10,000, I'll just leverage a little bit on this right now. Years ago, I did a licensing deal with a major consumer mail order catalog company, and they licensed the rights from me by agreement, by written agreement, for them to print 250,000 copies of my booklet. You can imagine, I'm sure, that as I was sharing this with many friends and colleagues, they were all gasping about what a huge number this was. Well, I assure you, it was not part of my everyday routine either. However, let's put this into some context, because that's really where this all matters and how I can be the most helpful in encouraging people to grow and to take next steps and to have that courage. The year that they licensed that 250,000 copies from me, they were distributing 17 million catalogs. So the 250,000 copies of my booklet that they wanted to use as a gift with purchase was a test for them. That was a drop in their bucket. 17 million catalogs they were distributing that year. It was just a few more zeros. It was just a different sandbox than the one that I usually played in. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
We actually had a client that had well, one of our sales reps found a consumer products company that was introducing a stain remover. And one of
Mm-hmm.
my clients had a book on barbecue recipes. So
Mm-hmm.
we created a little 8-page booklet of Gapi barbecue recipes, and this company bought
Mm-hmm.
300,000 of them as a
Yep.
test. And
Yep.
their claim was that their stain remover could remove any stain caused by these Gapi barbecue recipes.
Love it.
And so when this test is over, I'll let you know how it goes, because they'll order several million of them. Just if the test is 300,000,
That's right.
the full run will be significantly larger. But the point, I'm just
That's right.
reinforcing your point that he can have this order from something with the booklets.
Yeah, you know, and really, truly, I'm saying this several times about depending on what sandbox you're playing in. That really is the whole thing. That if you are dealing with small business owners as your only market, that's going to be a different conversation than when you are possibly still playing with small business owners and you're also dealing with large associations and large corporations who very frequently are vendors in some way to those small business owners. So, and that's a very large part of the gap that I bridge in the work that I do with booklet authors, of showing how you really truly can utilize all that experience and expertise and revenue that you've generated with small business owners, how you can take that to a conversation with a large entity who serves to benefit by playing with you and funding things that you don't have the funds to do, and that is a drop in the bucket for those larger entities. So I think we can move on, because I could talk
Are you
about what
going
I
to
was
go
just
into that?
starting.
Are you going to bring up that sample of the paper company that you dealt with, or is that?
The paper company that I dealt with, the well-known one, you mean?
Yes.
That
That's a great story. Is this appropriate time for that, or is it maybe later?
Yeah, no, that's
really
fine.
A great story.
And I think, and I hope we're talking about the same example. There was a well-known paper company that decided that they wanted to have quite a few copies of my booklet, and that they wanted it printed on their paper. How strange. And that they read all the way through the booklet, but missed noticing a tip until after the printed booklets were delivered. And there was reference, and this was a long time ago, it was before recycling and the green movement. They didn't notice that I had made reference to using paper again. And they decided that they wanted to sell new paper. It was before this whole recycling thing started. And they ended up putting a patch over that particular tip rather than pay for having another run of the booklets done. I'm not sure if that was the example you were talking about, Brian, is it?
It is, but as I recall, you said that I understood it, that they printed each page on a different sample of their paper, so they would use that booklet as a sample with good information, but it also served as a sample of their different types of paper.
Yes, I have done that as well, and that was another one. I wasn't quite sure exactly which example you were talking about. You know, when you've been in this business for 23 years, there have been a bunch of examples, and just depending on what day of the week it is as to which ones come to the surface, you know?
Yep. Okay, but this stuff is good. So I'm hoping you would touch on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, in any other example that you recall, if we can fit it in today, that would be great, because those are the ones that are long-lasting. Okay, so...
A question came in. You want to try this now? Or just, it says,
yeah, generally we'll wait to the end, but if there's another
later.
one...
You want to do this later?
Why don't you let me know what it is right now, then?
Okay. Say do it now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. My booklet is different, but how to title it so it's different from other similar books.
Okay, I'm going to answer that now, but the rest of the questions we are going to wait till the end, because that booklet that you're concerned about how to title it so that it's different, I answered this question to somebody else in a different conversation this morning. The title is not copyrightable, first of all. Second of all, you will be marketing your booklet different than anybody who has the same title as your booklet. You'll be going in different directions. You'll be contacting different people. Do not lose sleep about the fact that somebody else has the same title. So that's my short answer on that.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
So make one more comment that it is being recorded. We've had several questions about because people came in late, but it is being recorded, and I'll get the link to the recording to everyone soon. Tomorrow. Hopefully.
Good. Okay. Okay, so let's proceed. And the next strategy that I think is really important to people, I know it is to me, and I know, to any of us who really enjoy having a roof over our head and regular nourishment on a regular basis, the idea of recurring revenue. Recurring revenue, there's three things that I'd like to talk with you about that. So the idea, first of all, of how can you create recurring revenue. And let's just say you have only one product. Let's just say you have only one product. So I've shown you on the screen here a product sheet that has on it a graphic of a booklet and an audio CD. Let's just say you only have the booklet. And in order for that booklet to have happened and to have been produced well, it needed to go from probably a Word document to the graphic design, professional graphic design. If you are adept at doing that, great. Otherwise, hire it out. There's plenty of folks who do a great job, and that's what they do every day of the world, and they do that. So their output's a PDF. That's a saleable product right there. So then you have the ability to record it, and you can record it at no cost. You can record it on what we're doing now. You can go to any of the teleconference services, many of which cost nothing and do have recording capability, and the output's an MP3. So now you've got two products from the first one, from that document that you created for the booklet. In fact, you've got four products. You thought you only had one. Now stay with me here if you can. I think you can. You have the PDF of the booklet. You have the MP3 recording where you've embellished those tips a little bit by being a little more narrative, but you've kept it at a reasonable time frame, like maybe an hour at the outside. So now you've got two products. Those two products can be done in hard copy. They can be done as downloads. All of a sudden, now you've got four products. Two of them are hard copy, two of them are download. Two different versions of the booklet, two different versions of audio. Now, how does this play into recurring revenue? Because you've got four products, and you're talking to Ms. Josephine, Marketing Manager at XYZ Corporation, who needs to have something to give out each quarter to expand their mailing list, to have people join on their list, to help sell more of their product, gift with purchase, to have a happy new year at the beginning of the year or season's greetings at the end of the year, and how to be more productive in your life in general mid-year, just as a way to stay in touch. Ms. Josephine, Marketing Manager, needs to have different things that she can make available as giveaways to stay in front of their prospects and their clients. You started with one product, a manuscript of a booklet, and you've got four different formats, two formats of each of two different products. And you put this on a product sheet like what you see on your screen. Only one product has ever been created so far. However, Ms. Josephine, Marketing Manager, says, you know, I like the idea, however, I'd really love to be able to give out printed audio CDs. And your response is, you know, we're in process on that right now, and we expect delivery on that between 2 to 4 weeks. Now, Brian, all of what I just said is true. We are in process of developing that, and we can deliver that between 2 to 4 weeks, because if you've got an order, I assure you, you're going to put stuff aside to make that happen. So we started with one booklet manuscript and ended up with four products, and you have a conversation with Ms. Josephine, Marketing Manager at XYZ Company, and you've become her one-stop shopping for this year. She has provided you revenue for the whole year, 4 different times, and you've provided her a solution so she doesn't have to dig around anymore to find out what it is she's going to be giving away throughout the year. If anybody got concerned about, oh my gosh, it's the same content being given out, let me allay your concerns right now and say to you, have you learned what you've learned the very, very first time you were exposed to it? I know I didn't. It either has to come from different people or different formats, or I have to hear it again and again. So if you're concerned about that, I encourage you to move beyond that and realize that you are serving solutions to people who can turn around and serve you a solution in the way of recurring revenue. This is one of many, many ways. I wanted to start this off, though, this section, so that you saw what you've got really is very easily leveraged, and it does not need to be a lot of heavy lifting in order to do it. So let's go on now to the next section of this, dividing a single product for more products. So let's just say you did a 1-hour teleclass like we're doing now. And you decide, well, an hour is great, and yeah, I could put the audio, the MP3, into my earbuds, and when I'm driving someplace or when I'm jogging or doing other things that you might be inclined to do where you can't sit down or don't want to sit down, you could have 4 different 15-minute audio recordings. That's fine. It allows people to absorb whatever it is you've got for them in ways that are digestible. You can make it all in the same format or vary, just like I was talking about a moment ago with having the booklet and the audio in each 2 different formats. So you can divide a single product for more products. That's another way that you can then create inventory for a discussion with somebody who has a year-long campaign to be able to supply them product that will be useful for them. And another way for doing recurring revenue is you can do short-term courses that are based on the booklet content. And you can have them be different levels, whether you start off basic and then the person renews for the next segment of more advanced, which is an intermediate level, and then another level of advancement to more advanced. You can make those short-term courses online, offline, in person, live, which is the same as in person, but not really. The distinction here I'm making is that you can do live, like those of you that are on the call right now, or on demand, which is recording. And I'm going to be addressing an on-demand opportunity for you later before we close out today as well. Any of those allow you to have enough inventory without it taking up any room in your office, by the way, so that you can have a conversation with a marketing person or a salesperson or a product manager person in a company or an association membership director where they need to have a variety of things throughout the year. You become a shopping center for them. They end up paying you on a recurring basis. Everybody's happy. So that's probably the shortest version you've ever had of education about recurring revenue. Certainly we can't go into the kind of depth here today as we can in other ways. However, I want to keep moving forward. We already talked about languages. And one of the more fun things that I love to share with people after we've gone through all this different stuff about product creation and how you can sell it, very often it just doesn't occur to folks that everything you've done, you can rinse and repeat it by going into other languages. And usually we haven't hit upon, which we did today, the whole notion of foreign language rights. This was unusual just because the cast of characters of Brian and me having those experiences and knowing an expert who does that. In the situation you're in, you may want to contact Bob Erdman to see how he can be helpful in extending your reach broader in the world. Otherwise, you may find that right under your nose, literally in your neighborhood, you have somebody who wants to reach a population that speaks a different language than what your native language is. And think in terms of everything that you've done can go into other languages. Think about who is in your community, even if you live in a community that is completely American, Caucasian, English speakers. It is very possible, very likely that you've got, for instance, a bank manager or some other vendor who is interested in reaching a non-English speaking population where English is not their native language. Many parts of North America, there are very strong non-English speaking populations. And as you see in the example, the graphic there, that couple is saying hello to each other in Spanish. So it means you don't even need to leave your own zip code if you are in North America. And I don't know how many folks we've got on this call, either live or listening to the recording, who are other places in the world. No matter where you are, it is very likely that you already have contact with somebody who wants to reach a population that is not the native language of what you speak. So think in terms of everything that you've done goes into other languages, who is in the community around you, and create the product as needed on their money. So let's just say that bank manager says, you know, I've been wanting to reach this very large Vietnamese population here, and the information that you've got would be very helpful to them. At that point, you turn around and say, you know, I'd be happy to talk about a licensing deal with you where we can grant you the right to do all the work, including getting it translated, getting it edited in that other language, getting it published, getting it produced, and you'll pay us for it. That's a licensing deal. I've done those a bunch of times, and that is definitely something that is a way to leverage your content of any format that you've done, of any of the products you've got, whether it's booklet, whether it's book, whether it's audio, on and on and on. So who else can you suggest that they want to reach? Because they may not have even thought about it. They may not have even thought about it. help that potential client expand their reach with your suggestion. After all, it's just a suggestion. And you could end up being a hero, and you can help make them a hero in the process. So in all of this, one of the things to consider beforehand rather than after the fact is to consider cultural sensitivities. One of the things I learned after the fact in this journey was that I think it was maybe the second licensing deal I did with language that was not English. I granted a license to somebody who wanted to get it translated into Spanish, and they got it translated into a level of the Spanish language that was not a professional level of the language. And I didn't know that. I didn't speak Spanish. Didn't know until many years later when somebody I knew who was fluent in Spanish looked at the booklet and told me. So if you are not dealing with, and if your licensee is not dealing with a very well-established translation company, make sure you recommend that they do a double blind, which means that they have somebody who didn't see the original translate it back from the non-English into the English to make sure that it does say what you want it to say at the level you want it to say. And also ask about any cultural taboos. There's some real horror stories about things that have gotten translated and they became inappropriate in the other language. So things like that are really crucial to know about on the front end rather than as an oops after the fact. So today we've talked about...
One thing there, just to
please.
corroborate that, Paulette, that I had a book, Job Search 101, and I had it translated into Spanish. And it came back as El Trabajo 101, which sounded good to me because I don't speak Spanish. And I had some people who did speak Spanish as a first language read it, and they said that it's meaningless. 101 is the basic course in the U.S.
Yep.
Now, outside the U.S., it could have been Job Search 493. It didn't make any difference. So I had to have the whole thing retranslated because it was a very literal translation from someone with English as a first language and Spanish as a second language. And it was just, I had to have the whole thing retranslated just for that reason.
Isn't that amazing? And you know, Brian, when you told me that story, it stuck in my brain, and I have shared that with booklet authors who have wanted to make their title 101 Ways to Do Something. And, you know, I've reminded them of that very fact. So that's one of those things where you were very helpful to me in all of that as well. Okay. So today we have gone through how to become an almost instant author, turn your how-to tips into a tips booklet, one or more tips booklets, by creating the tips product first, partnering for profit, funding sources we've talked about, recurring revenue, and other languages. And we've gotten a lot of information here. However, as you can appreciate, we've really scratched the surface. So the question then becomes, what's next? And Brian, I know we've got some questions. I want to hold them for a moment. And sure. I promise you, before we close out today, I will leave lots and lots of space. However, I just want to make sure that for folks who are kind of wondering, you know, that this was good stuff for them, and it resonated, and what's next? Well, everything that we talked about today is expanded in a course that I created, a downloadable, completely on-demand course called Booklets and Beyond. And you're going to be able to not only secure that for yourself, we've got a few bonuses as well. And that Booklets and Beyond, making more money today online and offline. When you go to bookletsandbeyond.com, you're going to see all of what's in there and what you'll get, what's included, what the investment is. And what you're not going to see, though, is you're not going to see what we are offering you because you're on this call or you listen to the recording. And Brian and I spent a lot of time talking about what seemed to make sense for the folks who are on this call. Because, you know, we've talked a lot about money from your knowledge and with tips booklets and other information products. And, you know, over the years, people have asked me to share more about what to do with booklets to really make money from them. That's why I created this course, and why I also decided that it made some sense to help any of you who are sitting on the fence to really take action as quickly as possible. Because some of the things that you might be wondering are, what it would be worth for you to find the ideal partners we talked about today who make new business land right in your lap, and how much time and energy and money you'd save in finding new income right under your nose. I don't know about you, but I am frequently looking around to see where good matches are. And what if I could give you this simple system to generate the recurring revenue beyond the few examples I gave you? This Booklets and Beyond program does that. The idea that I've given you here today, I could be charging a whole lot more than I've decided to. And I, at one point, was thinking about making it somewhere in the range of $600 or $700. And I said, that's not fair. It's just not fair to the folks that really are ready to move forward on this. So what I've decided to do, instead of it being $697 or $497, I dropped it down to $197. And it's a one payment deal. It's not recurring. $197. It's almost embarrassing. I mean, I had a few people really ask me if I had lost what little mind I had left. I'd rather have you experience the joy and the amazement from what you'll accomplish than have you sitting around wondering what might have been. There are 4 segments, 4 modules to this that you'll get all at once, and it will include an MP3 for each of the modules. It will include the transcript from each of the modules. It will include a PDF guide for each of the modules, and you will be getting access to a private LinkedIn discussion group where it is solely for people who have either taken the live course when I was giving it live or have invested in the downloadable, so that you'll have the opportunity to have that support system and that support team right there. As I mentioned, I've got some bonuses that Brian and I decided made some good sense. The first 10 people who say, oh yeah, this is a slam dunk, I got to do it, I'm offering you a private 30-minute consult with me. And that private 30-minute consult will be guided by you. So if you want to talk about what content needs to go into your booklet, that's great. We'll talk about that. If you want to talk about how to market whatever you've got already or you don't have yet, we'll talk about that. That 30 minutes will be rock solid consultation. It will not be sales call. It will be rock solid support of whatever is important to you so that you can get the results you want. The first 20 people, not only will you get, the first 10 got the 30-minute consult, the additional 10 will get your tips reviewed at no cost. I will take a look personally at what your tips are, and I'll give you feedback. It will not be a line-by-line copy editing. I will give you specific guidance, though. No question about that. I will give you support on how you can present your information so that it is most likely to be the most effective you can make it. So the first 10 get both of that. First 10 get the 30-minute and the tips reviewed. If you drag your feet and you weren't one of the first 10, but you were one of the first 20, you'll get your tips reviewed. When you invest in that Booklets and Beyond, you'll also receive as a bonus a program I did called Give Away Your Booklet to Increase Your Bottom Line. That's a downloadable resource that I also usually sell. Usually sell that for $47 by itself. It's an audio and it is transcript and it is a copy of a booklet. So that's a bonus when you invest in that. Everyone registered for this call gets the 15 questions to instantly help you write a tips booklet. That will be a PDF. So these bonuses come with your investment, and I really encourage you, the first 10 people, jump on that, because generally I charge about $100 a half hour. And if the timing is not right, that's okay. I want you to have the greatest advantage possible, though, in this moment. So, Brian, I think you were going to throw something in there also, weren't you?
Just some for the bonuses?
Yeah. You had some articles. I thought that you were going. I thought you had some articles that you were also going to add in to anybody who does invest in these.
Sure, I will do that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, Brian, don't make me twist your arm like that. Come on.
That's not a problem. I have plenty of content I'm willing to repurpose and provide to help people. I like helping people.
Yeah, and the information that you have is so valuable, and so often, even when folks have been hanging around you for a while, it's impossible for any of us to learn everything we have to share with people. It's not possible. So given all of that, I would encourage you to go to bookletsandbeyond.com. And when you do invest in that today, put Brian's name on there, just so I know that you heard this webinar. Put Brian's name in there someplace, or make some reference so that I know this is where we connected, at least this time, because I know there's a lot of folks who have said to me, Paulette, I don't remember where I first heard about you. And that's fine too, because I've been around for just a bit. So Brian, I know you said we've got some questions here, and this is a great time for us to do that. So bookletsandbeyond.com while you're listening or asking, and we can keep going.
Okay. I'd like to just reiterate one thing, that back when you were talking before about the recurring revenue, and you had the sales, the flyer up on there with the booklet and the CD.
Yeah.
If people noticed the title of that, it was a great. It was just after you answered the question about the title, but the title of that booklet was Tips for Moving Seniors.
Yeah.
I thought that was great because it found a niche, it positioned itself in the niche, and removed itself from the general population of general moving companies, and was able to talk. So I thought that was a really good example of.
That is an industry unto itself, by the way. Yeah. Senior move managers.
Yeah, that's great. We do have several questions here. Do you have any translation services that you recommend? Any that you think are particularly good?
You know, I have not gotten involved in that, because generally what I've done is I've allowed that to be part of the function in a licensing deal. So that has not been something my company has gotten involved with at all.
Okay. How many pages should a tips booklet be?
Yeah, tips booklet, I like to make it 16 interior pages and cardstock cover.
Okay. Is there any number of tips that are good per page?
The thing that I have suggested more to people is that the word count be a maximum of 3,000 words. And one of the things that I've been doing lately has really been focusing people on 52 tips, because that way you really can leverage that in a lot of different other product formats so that it becomes one tip a week.
Yeah. How long should the tips be?
Somebody wasn't listening. 30 words.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 to 40 words as a max.
Okay. What about adding photos, illustrations? Should it be all text, or should you break it up with photos and illustrations, or what do you recommend as far as the layout?
Yeah, something graphic is really useful. And when I say it that way, it can be anything from a graphic element to clip art to photography.
Okay. What about pricing? What's a good price range for a tips booklet?
That's called How Long is a Piece of String? And the reason that I'm answering it that way is that because my primary support of people is to sell in bulk, there are so many different variables that it is impossible to give you a price list, because it depends on the quantity, it depends on the size of the booklet, it depends on how much customization gets done, it depends on if there's rush orders. So, and I do not recommend doing single copy sales. It is just not worth the time and energy to do single copy fulfillment. This is not bookstore stuff, and this is not, you know, a whole bunch of other things. If you are a speaker and you're doing back of the room sales, you may decide you want to bundle a single copy as an incentive gift with purchase, but otherwise, I really discourage you from single copy sales as much as possible. The only way anybody can get a single copy of my booklet at this point is as a download.
What about printed versus ebook booklets?
Depends. Again, you know, a lot of the questions that I completely understand being asked, There are so many different contexts that booklets can be used that there are some situations now where only downloadable makes sense. There's many situations where only print makes sense. I'll give you two examples. When you want to use the booklet as a way to expand your online mailing list, clearly a downloadable version of the booklet makes most sense. Let's just say, and you pointed this out a moment ago about senior moves, let's just say that you are an assisted living facility and you decided that you either wanted to write a booklet or have a booklet written for you, which our company does also, and that it is ways to choose the best assisted living facility for mom and dad or for your loved ones. Well, you've got two audiences there. You've got the senior person who's about to become the resident, and you've got the adult baby boomer child. So you may want to have both the downloadable and the printed version of the same booklet to use as a leave behind for the two different generations. And that's one of many examples why it's impossible to give a flat-out answer on that.
That's my favorite answer anyway. It depends.
Yeah, it does.
But most times it really does. I agree.
Yeah.
Here's a good question that I can also add some to. What's the best way to reach the corporate buyers, and who should I speak to?
Consistently, first of all, is the best way to reach them. Keep contacting them. Keep contacting them. And as far as who to reach, it's going to typically be the somebody high in the marketing or sales or product development.
Okay. As far as we do this a lot, selling books to corporations. And if you want to find out where to find the names of people, there's a website called manta.com, manta.com, that lists about 8 million businesses in the U.S. and it gives you the contact information, the names, the phone numbers, addresses, email addresses, URLs. So you get a lot of good information. And as Paulette suggested, go to the marketing department. That company that we did, the consumer products company, it's going to test the barbecue recipe booklets. That was a marketing decision. But you may go to the HR department, depending on what your content is. For something like that, tips for moving seniors, you might have something about moving employees, and you go to HR for that topic. So the idea is to find out who the decision maker is, and a lot of times you can go to trade shows and come in direct contact. If you're having trouble getting through to a marketing person via phone, go to a trade show, because in most instances that marketing person will be manning or personing the exhibit. So you can go there and talk directly with these people. So excuse me, find that person to contact, and then make the call. What I do, I like to call first in that sequence. Find out who the person is, what the person's name is. You'd be surprised how many people misspell my name. I spell it Judd, J-U-D. A lot of people add an extra D on the end of it. So find out the right person, the right spelling. And if you're having trouble getting through, a technique that I've tried that has been successful, that a lot of times if you call up, you get the receptionist or you get the assistant, and they'll say, what's the nature of the call? Well, I want to talk to, say, Josephine, the marketing manager, about a booklet I have. You go right to voicemail. When that happens, what I do is I'll ask for accounts receivable and get right to accounts receivable. They'll answer, hello, accounts receivable. Oh, how did I get you? I'm trying to get the marketing manager. Would you please switch me over there? And they switch it right over, and you usually get right through. And that's helped me a lot. So it's a good technique. But if you contact, and then once you reach the people, ask them, how do you want me to follow up? By email? You want to send you some samples? Do you want me to come over and see you? I'll be at the show next week if you want to meet there. But the idea is that you find out who the right person is, and then that may be just a process of asking and going through the hierarchy. But it's the larger the order, the higher the level of contact will be in most cases. So I think that will help. Are all booklets saddle stitched?
If you follow my advice, they are.
Okay, so it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
At 16 pages, it wouldn't perfect bind it, but I would think.
No. It's much too small for perfect binding at that point.
I've seen some booklets that are pocket sized, that are somewhat that aren't perfect bound, but they're usually heavier paper and more pages.
Right.
But
That's why I say
most
16
cities,
pages is too, it's too small for them.
you know, while people are thinking about other questions to ask, I've got just a brief story I can tell about how I sold hundreds of thousands of booklets. Basis, what I did, I was selling my Job Search 101 to colleges, and the career development officers all bought one at 3,500 colleges, which was a nice sale. But I was trying to get them to the students, and because I want to sell larger quantities. And I found out the students, one, they were frugal. They didn't want to spend $14.95,
Mm-hmm.
and two, they didn't want to read. They don't like to read.
Yep.
So they just want quick information. So I took chapters out of that book and made one on resumes, one on cover letters, and several on interviewing for that, and sold those to the colleges, and they gave them to the students. So
Mm-hmm.
their objective was to get more students graduating with jobs as they graduate. The students wanted the information quickly, in tips format, and I got paid. And I was running these things. I was doing 100,000 at a time. These are about 10 or 12 cents a booklet, and I was selling it for 50, 60 cents. So it was a nice markup on it also. So it was in that quantity, obviously. But the point is that you can take that recurring revenue concept, because once I got these into the schools, every year they reordered. I changed the word of tips for college students. And then I changed that to unemployed residents, and sold the same booklets with minor changes to state governments, because their objective was
Mm-hmm.
to get the people that are unemployed, to get them obviously reemployed. And I know Connecticut had a bundle of those. Everyone signed up for their unemployment benefits got a pack of my booklets. So it's something that you can take that existing content, which was the book, turn it into booklets, and then take that same booklet concept and take it to another market, another niche. So the more you do, the more it grows, and the more recurring revenue that you get.
Brian, you made 2 points there that I'd like to address. One of them is that, and you said it kind of obliquely. I want to reframe this. Many times where we think is the obvious market turns up empty, and
Yeah, good.
something comes in from out of left field that we never would have thought of for all kinds of reasons. And it turns into the great sale of the century. It can be because somebody tripped over a copy of the book or booklet, or it can be that you had a conversation with someone and they had a vision for how it could be used. I've had several of those. You just referenced several of those. The other thing, too, is that we've said a couple of times here, and I want to reinforce this, that regardless of whether you have anything written yet or not, whether you've got a book, multiple books, or you have nothing written yet at all, no matter what you do, first of all, you can become an almost instant author, and two, everything will market everything else. So by having choices without it being an overwhelming number of choices, you increase the likelihood of your sale. Rather than it being, do you want to buy this or not, it becomes, which of these is our starting point? And one other thing that I want to mention too, Brian, when you were talking about how to approach the corporations and the associations, typically I also suggest to people that you look in your own life to see where you've got contacts, and it may be 1 or 2 steps removed. However, everybody that I know, in spite of many of them saying I don't have any contacts, I have yet to come up empty-handed after at least a 5-minute conversation with a person,
Sure.
with people they didn't realize were contacts. And if you are concerned about the possibility of it looking like you are imposing or leaning in any way on that relationship, as long as you are thinking you're asking them for something, I can understand that you might feel that way. However, as soon as you flip it around and realize you're bringing them something that will benefit them or that may benefit them, how dare you not bring it to them? You're withholding something from them that could be helpful.
Good point.
So those are really nuances that make a huge, huge difference in your approach to who you bring what you've got.
Uh, well said. One
You got any
one quick
other
last.
questions that are popping up there?
Yeah, we got one that where do we find prospects?
all
And
over the place once you
yeah,
notice them, you know.
yeah. I mentioned that manta.com for corporations, for businesses. It could be SIC codes, trade shows. If you're looking for associations, there's a website called weddles.com/associations. It's WEDDLES.com. And make sure you get the /associations and list all associations. And you can just as a hot link to those. You can sort them uh, by topic. There are the military exchanges like AFES, AAFES, Army Air Force Exchange Service.com, Navy-NEX, or some. If you're looking at selling to the government, there's a website called FedBizOps, FedBizOpps.gov, and that lists what the government buys, when, from whom, how much, and at what price. So that's a pretty good prospect list right there. So I think those 4 or those 5 will help you get started, certainly. There's probably a total of about 8 million prospects there for you.
Brian, you know, we have given people so much information today that my concern always is that we gave them too much information. And that's a risk that we're mirroring, that our folks in our audience can easily be experiencing. So what I'd like to say is that for those folks who are stepping up to the plate and investing in Booklets and Beyond at bookletsandbeyond.com, I will personally help you streamline what your strategy can be so that you take from this huge amount of possibilities and get something that is easily digestible. And frequently I'll say to people, and now my latest thing now is, we don't want you drinking from a fire hose so that you
Yeah,
drown.
that's right. Yeah, right.
You know, I used to talk in terms about going to a buffet and of seeing all these delicious things and not being able to monitor too well what goes into your mouth to that point where your stomach kind of goes, what the heck did you just do to me? So in the process of all these choices and all these resources that we've shared with you today, I promise you, whether you work with me now, whether you work with me later, whether you work with Brian now or later, I will make it a point of helping you create a strategy that will be something that is digestible so that you can get the results that suit you best.
Perfect ending. So we have no more
How's that?
questions, and that's great, Paul. Thank you very much. Great job, great information, and I appreciate you taking time to help my apps members out and other members, and thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I will get the link to the recording to you as soon as possible, along with the PDFs as promised, and I wish you all a great evening. Thanks again, Paulette. Nice job.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye, everyone.